Do you want to get insanely good at chess by practicing just 15 minutes a day? It might sound too simple, but this is the #1 thing that helped me to go from 1500 Elo to International Master. It's a proven path to a huge chess improvement, when done right, and I will show you exactly how to make it work for you. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Joining the Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. The #1 thing that you can do to improve your chess fast and consistent is by analyzing your own games. Every single chess game that you play and don't analyze afterwards is a wasted opportunity to become better at chess. Of course, it's only gonna help you to improve your chess fast if you're gonna do it the right way. So I'm gonna show you today how I analyze my games as an international master so you can do the same. It's a classical chess game that I have played in the German Bundesliga and I've got into big trouble. The game was very important for my team, so they all had to worry. So I want to understand why I did those mistakes, why I allowed this situation to happen, and what kind of lessons I can learn for the future. Chess.com has its amazing feature, which is called Game Review. Even if you only have a free account, you have one free game review available for you every single day, and I guarantee that if you're gonna take advantage of that and thoroughly analyze your games every day, you're gonna improve very fast. But how exactly do you do that? The magic is in the details. So you click on Analysis if you want to analyze the game that you have played, not on the chess.com itself. You paste your own game here, click on Add Games, and then you click on Review. Then chess.com is gonna review it for you, mentioning how many mistakes you have made, how many good moves you have made. So first of all, you see here the accuracy, have 89.4% accuracy, which is not really such a good indicator of whether you have played a good game. Yes, it's nice to see a big number there, but it does not necessarily mean you have done well. Then you can see the number of good and bad moves here. I have made 1 blunder and 2 misses. That's, of course, the critical mistakes that I have made that I want to put most of my attention. And this game review feature helps you a lot with identifying those key moments. Then you also have the approximate rating you have played this game for, but I really don't want you to focus too much on it because it's not really representative. That also depends a lot on which rating you currently have. Chess.com somehow takes that into account, so don't focus on that. Let's start the review instead. You can click this button to go to self-analysis, and then you just go through the moves, and each move has a certain mark on it. For example, this is the book move. Of course, I knew that variation. That's exactly the line I recommend to play in the 10-day opening mastery, my opening course, and also that's exactly the line that I have played against Fabiano Caruana. So of course, I know my stuff here. I know the ideas. That's always where I put focus on, not really memorizing the lines, but understanding what needs to be done. And then my opponent plays c5, which is the main line. But here, well, normally black takes, that is the main move. He played knight to c6 instead. And of course, I have the engine here, the lines that are there for me to help. But the point is, you don't want just to click through the moves, like the engine says that, okay, that's the best move. That's not really that helpful. The key point is trying to understand why that move is the best, and if you haven't found it, if you have made a mistake, why you have made that mistake. I'm gonna show you the examples here. Very, very instructive game, by the way. My opponent played knight to a5. That is a very typical one of the plans in the King's Indian, where black tries to attack on the queen side, and obviously white should play here in the center and on the king side. Well, maybe not that obvious, but normally you pick a side where you are stronger, whether it's king side, queen side, or the center, and you try to construct your plan there. So that's exactly what I did. You also see here this pawn chain, and normally the pawn chain is like a hint for you, indicating where you should try to play, because you normally want to continue it. So that means I should play here, which of course is not that simple, but that's my plan. And my opponent plays on the other side. I play knight d2, I want to bring all of my pieces into the game, and also this knight is a very important protector. And then I start my play in the center. My opponent plays rook b8, and remember, whenever your opponent makes a move, you must stop for a second, try to forget about all of your plans and understand what is his idea. That is the main mistake most of my students, me included, like we all do, not thinking enough about our opponent's counterplay. And by the way, in this game, that was the biggest mistake I made. Let me show it to you. I played bishop c3. I still kind of knew the ideas here. Bishop is very vulnerable along the b file, so it's not hanging now and puts pressure on that knight. Bishop c3 is a cool move. Now he plays e5. The first critical moment, like how do you understand where the critical moment comes, where you need to really analyze thoroughly why you have taken this or that decision? Well, the critical moments appear when you exchange some pieces, you change the pawn structure. That is basically the biggest change you can make in the position. For example, here I can take en passant, and that would tremendously change the nature of the position. But thank God I understood that's not the right thing for me, because first of all, I have a very powerful pawn here, which controls a lot of squares. Now it doesn't. And secondly, I help my opponent a lot to like activate his pieces, create threats against me. And if I take here, then he's going to be able to play d5, and he has tremendous activity in the center. All of his pieces are active and playing. That's definitely not what I want to achieve. So here I'm making a conclusion, okay, I was right here not to take, not to change the pawn structure, and instead I want to continue attacking here, and knight e1 is the way to achieve that, and that's also the right move. So my setup here, my plan for the game was correct. The problem was the implementation of my plan, which is, of course, the second most important thing after figuring out the right idea for your game. My opponent plays bishop to h6, and here the critical moment of the game comes. So I immediately understood that's a mistake. You're not supposed to play that, even though he told me like in some variations that's a normal idea, but here it definitely felt like a mistake. He's wasting time here, he's weakening this diagonal, and I felt like, okay, I need to take advantage of that. The problem though is, of course, we have to calculate the variations. It's not that simple. And so, yeah, the natural next step of my plan was to play knight d3. That's a very typical idea, to remaneuver your knight from f3 to d3, where the knight is in general very good, but also it supports this plan of f4 and just attacking on the king side and in the center. The problem though was that my opponent can take here. Now I don't want to take with the knight, because then he gets rid of this, well, stupid knight on a5, which is doing nothing otherwise. But yeah, now it's attacking this pawn, and he can take here. And if I take with the queen, I have calculated this variation in the game. He takes, he wins a pawn, and then I go somewhere with my queen, I thought. He has this beautiful plan, remaneuvering the knight all the way to d4. a3, b5, d4. And then the moment I saw this knight, I'm like, no, not Earth. I'm going to allow you to go from a5 to d4, making it from the worst piece on the board, the best piece on the board. But unfortunately, what I haven't realized in this variation, instead of taking with the queen, I can take with the bishop. And I saw it, but I thought, well, that's the same thing, right? He's taking, he's attacking my bishop. I don't want to allow this exchange, because otherwise he's just a pawn up and I don't have any compensation. And otherwise he has the same plan, and like I stopped my variation here. But it turns out I should have continued the variation a little bit and see here the move bishop to g5. And this spin is incredibly annoying. For example, if you try the same plan, then I go queen to f3, attacking here indirectly and attacking here very directly. So you try to defend that, but then I immediately have like knight e5 and win my pawn back, and that is a horrible, horrible position for black. And if you don't play knight h3, if you play something like that, then I have another double threat here, attacking the knight and threatening bishop h6, and again I win material. So my mistake is I didn't calculate the variation long enough, and I haven't felt that, well, here I'm gonna get a lot of initiative. He's giving up his best piece, most important piece in the King's Indian defense, the dark squares bishop, and I'm gonna get too much of a compensation for this one little guy. And another lesson to learn here, you don't need to focus too much on the material advantage. Rather, you need to focus on the pieces activity and the threats that you want to create, the initiative that you might get, the pressure you might put on your opponent. The reason why this moment is so critical is because I played f4, which is a big mistake. Instead of getting the advantage, I'm giving counterplay to my opponent, and that's the moment where all of the problems began. So Of course, I would have played knight to d3 if it wouldn't be for these tactical variations. So I wanted to play f4, stopping this bishop's attack on the knight, and then my opponent c4 is out of trouble. So every time you see a mistake, a blunder, or a miss sign there, you want to dive deeper into it and try to understand why that happened, why you played that move, and why you haven't the move that is much better instead. Let me show you why this starts a big problem, because seemingly it's a very natural move. I mean, it's my plan, I'm consistent with my plan, and my bishop is ready to support. I'm creating this threat, like what can be wrong with it? It turns out that black gets a lot of counterplay here, a lot of initiative, and that's not what you want your opponent to allow. He plays bishop g4, and here I made queen to c2 move, which is not the best one, but also not a big mistake. I have thought about bishop f3, but then it turns out after bishop h3, I have to sacrifice the exchange here, taking on e5, allowing him to take, and then I just take on f6. And that is like high-level chess for me. I just sacrifice an exchange. I'm really bad at that stuff, at least so far, and I'm really sharing it all with you to show that I'm not perfect. I'm trying to improve my chess. It's my journey to Grandmaster. But it's tough in chess because you have to sacrifice like that. You don't have anything like direct afterwards. Yes, you have one pawn for the exchange, but then you just play knight to d3 as if nothing has happened, and you just continue playing normally. You probably prepare e5, just continuing your plan, but you're in exchange down, and the position was great. So normally, like, you don't want to sacrifice the material if the position is good for you, and you don't see a direct win after your sacrifice, or direct something that you can take out of it. But here, you just normally continue playing, and thanks to the fact that your pieces are very active, you have a very good compensation. I played here queen to c2 because I thought, well, that's another normal move, improving my position and still going on with my attack. Now he takes, and suddenly he's creating a lot of threats. I played here h3, which is the right move, but next move, I'm making another miss in my game. Try to pause the video for a second and find the best move for white. It's a very, very instructive moment here. I hope you have found it. I hope you're better than me. I have thought about this move, but I haven't played it. It's g4. Again, just sacrificing the pawn, the same logic. And I was like, but he can play g5. I was thinking, calculating this move. And then I thought, I never get this pawn, but it's not true. I just play knight to f3, back, and I'm ready to continue my plan. Again, be consistent with your plan. It's not about the pawns. Sometimes not even about the pieces, but it's about your strategic idea that you have and constantly trying to execute it. And so I'm ready for the move e5, and this bishop is completely offside. It's like a stupid pawn standing here instead of the bishop protecting that guy. And in fact, the engine says he doesn't have anything better than, like, yeah, he's trying to stop it, but then I bring another piece to the attack, and now he has to play something like bishop g7 after takes or whatever, and then I'm taking this pawn, then I'm going to take this pawn, and that's a tremendously good position for me, basically winning. And the key to achieve that was to play g4. Unfortunately, I have taken on f4, which is a miss, because now I give my opponent too much of a counterplay. He plays knight h5, now he plays a very, very good sequence of moves. I play knight d3, which was my idea, but then he goes b4. b4 is a key move because this bishop is attacking the knight. And even though normally you don't want to play b4, it's like killing your queenside attack completely. But because I opened up my king and my kingside here, my opponent actually can change his plan to attacking on the kingside, because after bishop b2, like here, I'm perfect. But he plays queen to h4, and he suddenly has 4 attacking pieces, including the queen. I only have here 3 defending pieces, and it's not enough because I have so many weaknesses and my king is in trouble. And even though seemingly I have done everything correct, it's a very difficult position for me. Like, the engine says the best move here is f5. Like, oh my god, look at those dark squares. Like bishop e3 check, king to h2, queen g3 check, and the engine says it's completely fine. It's so difficult for a human being to go for such a position. So I have dismissed the move f5. What I wanted to play and what was a good thing to do was just rook f3, protecting this key pawn, sacrificing that one, but then I get a lot of initiative because I basically finished my development. All of my pieces are useful, and I have calculated that line again. So it's not like I didn't see the right moves because I made a huge blunder there, but it's just I have seen that this knight, which is obviously the worst piece on the game, can now play knight b7, knight d6, and then it suddenly is the best piece on the board. And I was terrified by that thought, but in fact, I'm doing good here. Yes, I'm a pawn down, but I have my initiative. That's a fine position. Instead, I have dismissed that because of this knight d6 idea and played a3 because, well, I'm creating my counterplay. But that's wrong. Like chess.com says it's a blunder. I'm not sure it's a blunder because I saw that my pawn is hanging. That's what my opponent did. But the problem is I have underestimated my opponent's play, and that's something you never want to do in your games. And that's one of the main reasons why you analyze those games, trying to understand why and how you have allowed your opponent, especially when you lose, of course, why you have allowed your opponents to get those dangerous threats. Like, look at those 4 pieces on the H file, and all of them are super strong and dangerous and creating so many threats. And in fact, this position is close to losing for me. But I have managed to turn the tables around here. That's absolutely incredible. So my idea was to play knight f3, replace that. I take on b4, creating a double threat. But there is an amazing move for black here. Just knight takes b3, sacrificing the knight, which I can never take, because then it's a checkmate. Okay, I have seen that. My idea was to play rook a3. And now here we come to my mistake. It's not that I haven't really calculated, I haven't really seen that for black. It's just that I have evaluated the final position of this variation after rook a3 the wrong way. I thought that should be good for me because I cover those squares, I attack my knight, and I don't see really aggressive opportunities for him. Right now, like he played bishop f4, we are going to come to it, but that's not that dangerous. But I have underestimated everything that my opponent can do here. For example, he has an amazing move, rook takes b4. And somehow it did cross my mind that this rook is doing nothing and maybe he can sacrifice it somehow, but not this exact way. And the problem is this knight is basically holding everything together for me. And this rook on b8, it's not participating in the attack. So again, it's not about the number of material you have on the board. The material is just an instrument for you to achieve your goal, and your goal is to give a checkmate. So this rook is useless for the attack. He sacrifices it just to deflect this very, very important defender, and then it's game over. He plays knight takes f4, and yes, I can get as many pieces as I want. They are not going to help me. Bishop takes g2, it's checkmate. It's not about the pieces, it's about the checkmate. And so after rook takes b4, I'm in big trouble. If I cannot get it, then he simply has a huge position, no material disadvantage. Again, I cannot win this knight because, well, the checkmate is coming. Otherwise, he's about to take on f4. He's having a huge, huge advantage. Luckily for me, my opponent didn't realize it, and he took immediately on f4, which allows me to take. And then this rook is not really participating. I have eliminated that knight, and my knight is still participating in the game, which is a huge difference. My opponent played bishop e3 check, which of course was terrifying. Like when you see those 4 pieces attacking you, it's very, very scary. And it's still much better for black. Again, even the variation that I hoped for to happen still does not work for me, because my opponent can just play f5. Even though I have an extra piece, it's number of attacking pieces, and now he's threatening to add, well, 2 more, because this pawn is coming and this rook is coming. If I ever take it, then he just can take with the rook, and the second rook is coming, all of the pieces are participating. That's really bad for me. And if I try to play e5, which probably I would consider as my best move, that's what I wanted to do in the first place, just plays f4. Like, this position is just very bad for me. Even though I have an extra piece, even though I have like succeeded with my play, it all doesn't help because his threats are too dangerous. So my main mistake is evaluating this position and underestimating my opponent's counterplay. I should be very, very careful with that going into the future. My opponent hasn't played f5. Probably he thought that's not fast enough, but in fact it is. It's adding yet another attacker, it's creating a threat. He played queen g4, which seems to be a more straightforward move to create this knight g3 move, and that's also what I was calculating because it seems to be more direct. But this move helps me a lot. Now I'm finding the only good move here, rook e1, but also logical. And then after knight g3, I play king to h2, and it turns out that my opponent doesn't really have a good way to continue the attack. I'm completely winning here, I'm attacking there. He plays bishop f4, which might be terrifying, like creating so many discover attacks here, but it gives me the opportunity to exchange, And then I have found another move, like again, those double checks are threatening, and maybe I can take the bishop somehow, but I have found bishop c1, which simplifies the position. It attacks the queen, and if the queen goes back, then I'm just winning everything. He played knight f1, because otherwise you cannot jump with the knight to give a check. I'm gonna pick your queen up, and now it's a double check, so I have to go back to g1, but now all of your pieces are hanging, and you cannot do anything about it, and so he resigned here. So yes, I did win this game, but it's not like it was a perfect game from my side, not at all. Even though I have got like 90% accuracy, it's in details that I have to understand, because a stronger chess player would just have checkmated me there, and I really have to be careful with that next time. So that is how you do it. You take advantage of the game review feature either on chess.com or on Lichess, which shows you where you have made your mistakes, where you have also made your great moves, because you also want to analyze that and like, this decision-making process was correct for me, I need to do more of that in the future. And as for your mistakes, you need to analyze why you have made it, what were your thoughts, and so you don't repeat it in your next game. It's essential here that this time distance between the moment when you play the game and you analyze it is as short as possible, because this way you still remember what you were thinking throughout the game. If it takes you more than 15 minutes to dive deep into the game and really understand what happened, that's completely fine. The main trick here is to motivate yourself and your brain to start this process, because the most difficult part is to start. If you're gonna start analyzing your games and then it's interesting for you and 15 minutes are up, you're not like, well, whatever, I'm not gonna analyze it till the end. It might happen, but the chance is not high. But the most important part is, of course, to start this process. And if you think about it the way like it's only 15 minutes, it's so much simpler for you to make this first step. Analyzing your own games would be a game changer for your chess level. But it's only 1 out of 4 key daily activities that you must perform in order to completely break through in chess in the next 30 days. In this video, I have prepared for you a full, detailed, step-by-step, completely free study plan to bring your chess to a completely new level in the next 30 days.